Hey YouTube, this is Ryan making another vid. If you like my content, please consider hitting the like button and also please consider subscribing, as it is very much appreciated. This is a short collection and comparison vid of my Real Steel S-Class knives. The Real Steel S-Class category of knives is Real Steel's high-end versions of their line. These are all numbered. Most of them are numbered models. Some are limited production runs that are no longer made, but this one is got a run of 699. They tend to make several of them, but for instance, this one I think had two runs. One had a 500 limit and then another run of 699. Others are discontinued. They don't make them any longer, but they're all numbered. I don't think they have a limit on how many they produced, but they do number their S classes, or they tend to number their S classes. And they also differentiate between the S class and all the other classes of Real Steel. Tends to be these are all high-end materials, so you'll have mainly M390 blade steel, except for this one's got Elmax, and they tend to be tie frame lock flippers. That are the ones that I have. There are a couple other models that aren't flippers, so I don't EDC flip anything other than a flipper, so I didn't buy them. But the S classes that I do have are all flipper deployment and tend to be tie frame locks, or with some of them, like this one's got a carbon fiber panel, this one's got carbon fiber inlays. But they all the S classes are all the higher end version of Real Steel. I have 5 in my collection. Starting from the top is the S3 Puukko, the S-Class Harrier, the S571 Pro, the Megalodon Eclipse 2018, and the Megalodon Titan 2017. This was actually the first high-end pocket knife that I bought from Real Steel. And when I bought it, it represented brilliant value for money, because most of these knives were around $200 each Australian. So for M390 titanium frame lock flippers for $200 was just outstanding value, particularly in light of the fact that these 3 here are among the best flippers that I own, and they easily keep up with knives like my Riats and that, as far as action goes. And to be able to buy them at that price point just represents brilliant value for money. And I will say I really do like Real Steel, because they do make knives that are quality knives at reasonable prices, although I have found now that their pricing is starting to get a little bit higher, particularly in some of their later models. They've added at least $100 onto their price point. So, and I actually saw this one, the Titan, advertised recently on eBay for, if you included the $67 in shipping, put it at just over $500, which personally I think is overpriced. It's well overpriced for, like, don't get me wrong, they're a fantastic knife, really well made. Fit and finish is really good. Their action is first rate. This one fires really well. As I said, easily comparable to my other best of flippers that I own, ZT, Wheeze, my Reats. This one and this one easily compare. That's the Titan. Was, as I said, the first high-end production knife I bought, and fits my hand really well. Has everything that I want on a M390 frame lock flipper. Fires excellently. Really well done. It's just a little bit slippery. That's one. My only criticisms for this knife is that it's slippery. The tie tends to be a bit slippery, and it's very bland. I would have loved to have, if they had put a bit of anodization, say the pivot, the pocket clip, and the standoffs, if they had all made them in different colours, blue or whatever, I reckon it would have raised it up to being easily my favourite pocket knife, and added a little bit of milling on the outside just to give some texture, because it is slippery. That's the Titan. I will note that these two here were supposed to have the needle bearings pivot system. I haven't taken either of them apart. I know these ones only came out in needle bearings, but this one had either, some of the earlier ones had needle bearings and then they changed over to ceramic bearings. I've never taken it apart. I've never needed to. So I can't confirm which one this has, either the needle bearings or the ceramic bearings. But either way, the flipping action is first rate. When they went on to the Eclipse, the Megalodon in 2018, they changed the blade steel, the blade shape to a Persian type blade. They retained the handle but put a carbon fibre panel on it. This one actually is a lighter knife, and the panel, the carbon fibre panel, seems to add a little bit of texture to it. So overall, as far as carry knives go, this is probably the better out of the two, and its action is 99.9% of the Titans. But these ones have the ceramic bearings. They didn't carry on with the needle bearings, and that's the two of them together. As you can see, the differences. Handles are almost exactly the same, just the carbon fibre panels on it, and together they're showing the differences. I really like this one too. These two, they're right up there on my favourite knives, and they easily compare in action to knives 2 or 3 times their price point. The S571 Pro, I bought it only because it was Real Steel's flagship model, and it was a numbered one as well. So this of 699, I think on there, you can see it. Mine's 591, and it comes in Elmax steel, and its flipping action is really good too. Just the needle bearing system is an excellent system. I don't carry this. It is part of my EDC rotation, and is one of the only non-M390 ones that I have in my EDC rotation. But it doesn't tick some of the boxes for me. There's no jimping on the flipper tab, and while the flipper tab's really well shaped in that, you do tend to slip off it, and all I had to do was put jimping on the flipper tab, flatten it off a little bit, put jimping on the flipper tab, and feature M390 blade steel, and this would have been right on there for me. It's again, fits my hand really well. It's a really well built knife. Nice flat grind, Warncliffe, almost Warncliffe blade shape. It's really well done. Again, these Thai frame lock flippers tend to be a little bit bland. This one's got the blue that extra lock, which I think is functionally useless. I've never really been a big fan of that lock, but yeah, I just would have loved to again seen the hardware as a different color, maybe the pocket clip, which is a departure too. You notice this one's actually got a milled pocket clip, and it works really well. I would have preferred that actually than these pocket clips, but they went with that one. And that's the S571 Pro. As you can see, it's quite a big knife too. These are all got near 4-inch blade length. So the Harrier, S-Class Harrier. Again, I wanted to love this knife, but it was. I've done a review on it before. You can go and watch that. It was a bit. I was disappointed in this knife, and it was the most expensive out of all of them as far as price point goes. It's got a lot of nice features. Sealed pivot bearing, a sealed pivot bearing in there. It's all sealed up, and they got a double detent system, and it's nice and smooth, and it fires really well. But there are centering issues. The pivot comes undone. I Loctited it so it doesn't now, and it started to develop blade play as that pivot unlocked, and the jimping on the tab is basically functionally useless. I often slip off it and misfire the knife. It had the potential to be the best real steel knife I had, but it just let it down in the execution several times. That's there again. This last one, the S3, is the high-end version of the G3, and the Puukko. I like the knife. It's quite a nice knife. They didn't put a steel lock bar insert in there, which I think is just, I don't know, laziness. I expect these Thai frame locks to have a hardened steel insert so that you don't have any galling issues or any lock stick. This one doesn't have any, and I found that this knife doesn't fire as well as any of the others. It's a little bit sluggish. It's quite smooth, but that almost fail, and you shouldn't be able to fail it that easy. Like, it's just not as snappy as any of the others. I think they could have strengthened the detent up a little bit, got it to fire. Because I actually have the budget version of this one, and it's almost as good as these firing, the budget version. And then I went and bought the more expensive version, and it basically doubled it in price. Went from $100 odd for the budget version to $200 for this, even though it's got M390 blade steel and that. Like, for value for money, for $200 was really good. It's just it got let down with the flipping action and no lock bar insert, which I think they could have done. And if they'd done that, lock bar insert, fixed the detent up on it, and added a proper lanyard attachment, because that's just wrapped around the back, one of the standoffs there, the only standoff it's got. I only EDC knives with lanyards. As you see, every one of them's got a lanyard on them. I love them, but yeah, it didn't have a lot of things going for it that basically regulates it to my least favorite out of my collection for real steels. But there they are, all lined up. S3 Puukko duplex grind. I didn't actually show you that. It's got quite a unusual grind, this duplex. Sort of a flat grind here and full flat grind here, and then it's almost a saber grind here. A little bit different. So that's the S3 Puukko duplex. The S-Class Harrier, and I didn't mention this has got 204p, which is just an analog M390. So they're exactly the same steels, just different manufacturers. S571 Pro with the Elmax blade. The Megalodon Eclipse with the Persian blade M390, and the Titan, again Megalodon Titan with M390. And there they all are open up, so you can get a good comparison. They're all very similar size knives, and then closed again. They're all very similar. They all ride very well. They're very, very similar in the pocket. This one's the best carry knife out of all of them. It's light, thin, rides in the pocket very well. But if I had to, and basically that's lined up in from my most favorite to my least favorite. Anyway, that's a comparison vid of my Real Steel S-Class. Thanks for watching.